Imagine being only 30 years old and ruling the largest empire the world had ever seen. That was the reality of Alexander the Great. From the mountains of Greece to the deserts of Egypt and the borders of India, his armies marched thousands of miles, defeating every empire that stood in their way. But Alexander's story is not just about conquest. It's about ambition, genius, and a dream of ruling the entire known world. More than 2,000 years later, Alexander is still remembered as one of the greatest military commanders in history. For more such stories, subscribe to the Timeline Keeper YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon. Alexander was born in 356 BC in the kingdom of Pella, the capital of Macedon. His father, Philip II of Macedon, was a powerful king who transformed Macedon into a military powerhouse. But Alexander was not just trained to be a warrior. His teacher was one of the greatest philosophers in history, Aristotle. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander learned about philosophy, science, medicine, and the cultures of the world. These lessons would later shape how he ruled his vast empire. In 336 BC, everything changed. King Philip II was assassinated during a celebration. At only 20 years old, Alexander suddenly became king of Macedon. Many Greek cities believed the young king would be weak. They revolted, hoping to break free from Macedonian control, but Alexander responded quickly and brutally. He destroyed the rebellious city of Thebes, sending a clear message to the rest of Greece: resistance would not be tolerated. Once Greece was secure, Alexander turned his attention to the greatest empire of the time, the Achaemenid Persian Empire. Its ruler was Darius III. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia with an army of around 40,000 soldiers. What followed was a series of legendary battles that would change history forever. The first major clash happened at the Battle of the Granicus. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Alexander led a direct charge across the river and crushed the Persian forces. It was the first sign that Alexander was not just a king, he was a military genius. In 333 BC, Alexander finally faced the Persian king himself, Darius III. The two armies met at the Battle of Issus. Despite having a much smaller army, Alexander used brilliant tactics. He led a direct charge toward Darius himself. Seeing Alexander's forces break through, the Persian king panicked and fled the battlefield. With their king gone, the Persian army collapsed. This victory made Alexander famous across the ancient world. After defeating Persia in Asia Minor, Alexander marched south toward Egypt. The Egyptians welcomed him as a liberator because they had been under Persian rule for years. In Egypt, Alexander founded a city that would later become one of the most famous cities in history, Alexandria. This city would become a center of culture, learning, and trade for centuries. In 331 BC came the most important battle of Alexander's life, the Battle of Gaugamela. Once again, Darius III gathered a massive army, far larger than Alexander's. But Alexander used clever battlefield strategies and disciplined soldiers. The Macedonian army broke through the Persian lines, forcing Darius to flee once again. This victory destroyed the Achaemenid Persian Empire and made Alexander the ruler of the largest empire the world had ever seen. But Alexander was not satisfied. He continued his conquest eastward, eventually reaching the borders of India. There he faced one of his toughest opponents, Porus, The two armies clashed at the Battle of the Hydaspes. Even though Alexander eventually won the battle, he was impressed by King Porus's bravery. Instead of punishing him, Alexander allowed Porus to continue ruling his kingdom. However, after years of fighting and traveling thousands of kilometers, Alexander's soldiers were exhausted. When they reached the Hydaspes River, the army refused to march any further. For the first time in his career, Alexander had to turn back. In 323 BC, while in the city of Babylon, Alexander suddenly became seriously ill. After several days of fever and weakness, the greatest conqueror of the ancient world died at only 32 years old. The exact cause of his death remains a mystery even today. Some historians believe it was illness, while others suspect poisoning. Although his life was short, the impact of Alexander the Great was enormous. His conquests spread Greek culture across Asia and the Middle East, creating a new era known as the Hellenistic period. More than 2,000 years later, Alexander is still remembered as one of the greatest military commanders in history.